Breaking news banners scream across every television screen, the kind reserved for moments that shift history in real time. Barack Obama destroys Trump after he insulted his marriage on live TV. Social feeds ignite like wildfire, headlines multiplying by the second, each one sharper, more explosive than the last. America stops mid-step. Bartenders mute TVs, families huddle closer to glowing screens, subway riders pull out earbuds just to catch the moment replayed again and again. The debate stage becomes the arena of the century. The air is thick, humming like an exposed wire. Cameras zoom in with merciless precision, catching the smug twist of Trump's grin as he delivers the kind of line designed not to argue policy, but to cut deep into the personal. His words drip venom. Your marriage? A joke. Your family doesn't even belong here. The insult detonates like a grenade. Gasps slice through the auditorium. Twitter floods in real time. Clips looped, captions in all caps. He really said that. Some in the crowd cover their mouths. Others mutter disbelief. For a heartbeat, it feels as though the entire country has been slapped across the face. This isn't politics. It's humiliation served raw, broadcast to millions. Trump leans back, basking in the silence he thinks is victory, his eyes daring his opponent to crumble under the weight of such a personal strike. The arrogance is suffocating, the certainty radiating from him that he's already won the night. But then the camera shifts. Barack Obama doesn't flinch. Not a blink, not a shuffle of papers, not a crack in his calm. His gaze locks on Trump, steady, unblinking, the kind of stare that carries a lifetime of battles fought and won. The audience can feel it, the tension of a storm gathering in silence. At home, viewers whisper to each other, "He can't let that slide." The energy is unbearable, like waiting for thunder. Air after lightning tears the sky open. Even the moderator hesitates, sensing history is being written in the pause before Obama speaks. The crowd holds its breath. The country holds its breath. Because everyone knows, when he finally responds, it won't just be about defending himself. It will be about reclaiming dignity, about standing for every family ever told they don't belong. The silence sharpens. The camera zooms closer. Something seismic is about to break. The silence breaks like glass under pressure. Obama's voice cuts through, calm but edged with a steel the world has rarely heard from him. "You can come after my policies," he begins, his tone steady, his eyes locked on Trump. "You can argue about taxes, healthcare, jobs. That's politics. But when you come after my marriage, when you try to tell families like mine they don't belong in this country, understand this. You're not insulting me. You're insulting America." The audience stirs, a low rumble swelling into applause before it dies back down. Trump's smirk falters just a fraction, a twitch in the corner of his mouth. The cameras drink it in, replaying every flicker of discomfort in slow motion. Obama leans forward now, his cadence sharpening with every word. "This nation was built by families who were told they didn't belong. Irish families, Italian families, Mexican families, Muslim families. Families with accents, families with different names, families who loved in ways others tried to shame. They were all told, 'You don't deserve to be here.' And every single time, they proved America wrong." The crowd erupts, standing, clapping, shouting. Hashtags explode across the digital sphere. "Had families belong, Obama strikes back." Viewers at home text each other furiously. "Did you hear that line? He's turning it around." Trump tries to interject, but the moderator raises a hand. No interruptions. Obama seizes the moment, his words now moving like thunder rolling across a plain. "See, the difference between you and me isn't just politics. It's vision. You think America is your stage, your brand, your inheritance. I think America is bigger than any one man's ego, bigger than your insults, bigger than my pride. It's about all of us. A hush falls. The arena feels less like a debate and more like a trial. Trump, the accuser; Obama, the defender; America, the jury. And the stakes are clear. This isn't about two men trading barbs. It's about whose version of the country will define the next generation. Obama's. Words turn sharper, faster, laced with fire. You insult my marriage, but what you really insult is every couple who ever stood at an altar and believed love made them American enough. You insult every child who ever watched their parents struggle to fit in and thought, maybe one day I'll belong. You insult the very idea that this country can hold all of us, even when we don't look like you, or sound like you, or pray like you. The crowd is on its feet again, louder now, chants breaking out. The moderator's voice drowned beneath the roar. Cameras flash, reporters' fingers blur on keyboards, already typing headlines that will live for years. And then Obama lowers his voice, a deliberate contrast that pulls every ear back into the quiet. This isn't just about my family. This is about every family. It's about whether we shrink America down to your small view of who matters, or whether we expand it to the promise written into its very soul. He lets the silence breathe again, but this time it belongs to him. Trump's eyes dart nervously, searching for a line to reclaim control, but none comes. The nation, glued to their screens, knows something is shifting. Because what's coming next? The closing blow, the words that will pierce deeper than any insult ever could, will not just answer Trump. It will redefine the fight. It will force America to look in the mirror and decide once and for all what kind of country it really wants to be. And when Obama delivers it, nothing will ever be the same. He had built an empire, or so he claimed. Towers with his name embossed in gold, hotels and casinos that glittered under the Vegas lights, and reality television that paraded him as the epitome of success. To millions, he sold an image of invincibility, sharp suits, sharper insults, and the constant declaration that he alone could restore greatness. But beneath that veneer of dominance lay cracks that only widened the closer people looked. For years, he branded himself as the voice of the forgotten man, the billionaire who understood the struggles of the working class. Yet, the stories followed him. Workers cheated out of wages, contractors left unpaid, small businesses crushed under his legal threats. He would stand before the cameras, wagging a finger about law and order, while quietly arranging loopholes to dodge his own taxes. He shouted about family values but left a trail of scandals, affairs, and accusations that painted a portrait of hypocrisy so glaring it was hard to believe anyone missed it. And yet, he thrived on audacity. He didn't deny, he doubled down. Every time he was caught, he turned the exposure into fuel, recasting himself as the victim of a witch hunt, the target of the fake news. The arrogance wasn't accidental. It was his strategy. If he said it loud enough, often enough, and with enough contempt for anyone daring to fact-check him, then millions would believe. And many did. The contradictions became his calling card. He promised to drain the swamp, then filled his cabinet with billionaires and lobbyists. He railed against corruption while inviting foreign leaders to stay at his resorts. He thundered about America first, but his businesses were stitched together with overseas labor, his PR, products stamped with Made in China. He stoked fears of immigrants stealing jobs, while quietly employing undocumented workers to polish the marble floors of his hotels. It was a theater of arrogance, a performance designed to blur reality, until loyalty mattered more than truth. What he demanded wasn't agreement, but submission. Cheer for him, excuse his excesses, and defend his contradictions, or face the fury of his insults and the mob he could summon with a tweet. But this strategy, once bulletproof, was beginning to wobble, because arrogance has a way of overplaying itself. He thought he could mock anyone, insult anything sacred, and remain untouchable. Yet the insult he launched that night, aimed at a marriage that symbolized endurance, unity, and grace, was different. This wasn't about politics. It was about identity, about love, about the kind of values Americans wanted to believe still mattered. The hypocrisy was too stark to ignore. A man who mocked fidelity, who bragged of his own betrayals, who traded wives like real estate, now positioning himself as an authority on someone else's marriage? The audacity was breathtaking, and the stage was set for the first crack in his facade to shatter into something much bigger. He didn't know it yet, but the moment he leaned into that insult, he invited his own undoing. The arrogance that had carried him this far was about to collide with a force he had never truly faced. The calm, unshakable resilience of someone who knew not only how to fight back, but how to expose hypocrisy with a single, devastating truth. The audience could feel it. As he smirked, as he reveled in the cruelty of his jab, there was an almost imperceptible shift in the room. People weren't laughing with him anymore. They were waiting for the counterpunch that everyone sensed was coming. And what was about to unfold would not just dismantle his insult, it would dismantle the entire illusion he had built around himself. The villain had finally overplayed his hand. Before the debate stage, before the cameras, before the clash that set the nation on fire, there was a boy sitting at a kitchen table watching his mother fold laundry after working a double shift. The house was small, the paycheck even smaller, but the love inside those walls was immeasurable. His father, an immigrant who came to America with little more than a suitcase and a stubborn belief in the promise of a better life, had taught him something that would carry him through every trial. Dignity doesn't come from what they call you. It comes from how you rise after they try to break you. From the very beginning, he knew what it felt like to be underestimated. Teachers mispronounced his name. Neighbors whispered about where his family came from. His mother's accent was mocked. His father's calloused hands dismissed as the mark of someone less than. Yet through every slight, every insult, every door slammed shut, he absorbed a lesson deeper than any textbook could provide. Your worth is not in their approval, it's in your endurance. He grew up seeing sacrifice up close. His parents gave up their own dreams so that he and his siblings could chase theirs. His mother worked nights at a hospital, walking home under streetlights while her children slept. His father pulled overtime shifts in a factory, his back bent but his spirit unbroken. When other kids spent summers at camps, he spent his in crowded buses, heading to minimum wage jobs, saving every dollar to help cover tuition. Every obstacle was fuel, every insult a reminder of the distance he had to climb. In school, he didn't just study to pass, he studied to prove. Prove that a child of immigrants could outshine expectations. Prove that someone from a modest neighborhood could walk the halls of elite institutions. And when he made it there, he carried not just his books, but the weight of generations who had never been given that chance. He never forgot the sting of exclusion, so he poured himself into learning not just the law, but justice. Not just history, but how to shape the future. When he entered public service, it wasn't with the swagger of entitlement. It was with the humility of someone who had lived the struggles of everyday people. He fought for families like his own, who worked hard yet felt invisible. He pushed policies that gave voice to those who had none. Every handshake with a factory worker, every hug from a mother worried about her child's future, reminded him of why he was there. He wasn't chasing power, he was honoring sacrifice. And yet, even as he rose, the insults never stopped. The same voices that mocked his parents now questioned his legitimacy. The same hands that shook his in public whispered slurs in private. The attacks on his name, his roots, his marriage, he endured them all, not because they didn't hurt, but because he had been taught that dignity is not in silence, but in persistence. What makes him different from the man across the stage isn't just policy or politics, it's origin. One was handed privilege like an inheritance. The other earned every inch of ground beneath his feet. One spent a life demanding loyalty. The other spent a life giving service. One sees identity as something to weaponize. The other sees it as the wellspring of strength. And that night, under the glaring stage lights, he carried all of it with him. The memory of his father's hands, his mother's weary smile, the taunts, the sacrifices, the improbable journey from obscurity to leadership. Every syllable of his story prepared him for this moment. Every wound had thickened his resolve. Every sacrifice had sharpened his purpose. So when the attack came, personal, vicious, meant to diminish not just him but everything he represented, he did not flinch. He did not stumble. He did not lower himself to the level of the insult. Because he knew something the other man would never understand. The strength of a life built on sacrifice cannot be shaken by cheap words. This was more than a debate. This was the culmination of a lifetime spent fighting to exist, to be seen, to be respected. And the man who had been shaped by struggle was about to reveal that struggle had not only made him resilient, it had made him unstoppable. And as the crowd leaned forward, as millions watched from their living rooms, he prepared to do what he had done his entire life. Take the insult meant to break him and turn it into a moment that would define him. The stage was no longer just about two men. It was about two Americas, one built on entitlement, the other on sacrifice. And the next words from his mouth would draw that line with the precision of a blade. The silence after Trump's insult hung heavy, like the stillness before a thunderstorm. Cameras panned to the audience, their faces a mixture of disbelief and restrained outrage. Some gasped, others shifted uncomfortably in their seats, but no one could look away. This wasn't just another exchange of political barbs. It was the collision of two worlds, two identities, two visions of America. Trump leaned forward, his trademark smirk curling as he jabbed again, desperate to twist the knife. You talk about family values, Obama, but your marriage, please. It's all a show. The American people see through your little fairy tale. The words dripped with condescension, calculated to humiliate. His voice was sharper now, the playful sneer fading into something uglier, rawer. The crowd murmured, some shaking their heads, others pulling out phones to capture what was fast becoming the moment of the night. Obama, though, remained still. Not a flinch, not a twitch, just the kind of silence that unnerves the unprepared. He let Trump fill the air, let him swing wildly, let him pour fuel onto a fire he didn't realize was already set beneath him. You preach about unity, Trump snapped, his voice tightening. But you divided this country with weakness. You bowed to our enemies. You let jobs leave. And the only thing you built was a fake image of yourself as some kind of saint. Guess what? I built an empire. You built nothing. The words came faster, harsher. Trump's breathing quickened. The sweat on his brow caught the stage lights. For the first time, the power dynamics began to shift. Not because Obama had said anything, but because he hadn't. The crowd sensed it. They leaned in, almost willing Obama to speak, to respond, to deliver what they knew was coming. Trump, unable to tolerate the silence, doubled down. People like you don't understand real America. You don't know what it means to actually win. You just hide behind speeches, behind your so-called charisma. But when it comes to results, you're a failure. Admit it. Admit it in front of everyone right now. The demand hung in the air, brash and desperate. But instead of landing as strength, it exposed fragility. The audience caught it instantly. The impatience, the need for validation, the insecurity spilling out of every syllable. Obama finally moved, just slightly. A shift in posture, a calm inhale. The gesture was small, but in the weight of that silence, it felt seismic. The crowd straightened in their seats. Something was coming, something they would talk about for years, and Trump knew it. That's why he pushed harder, raising his voice, the mask of composure slipping away. You're not who you say you are, and tonight everyone's going to see it. His voice cracked. Not much, just enough. But in a battle built on perception, that tiny fracture was everything. The tension in the room was now electric, a coiled spring waiting to snap. Every camera lens zoomed tighter. Every commentator backstage whispered into their mics. Every viewer at home felt the same rush in their chest. Anticipation. Obama's eyes narrowed, not with anger but with the calm of a man who has weathered storms before. He still hadn't spoken. He didn't need to. His silence was strategy, and Trump was walking right into the trap. The villain had overplayed his hand, his insults becoming less sharp, more repetitive, less controlled. The once commanding voice now echoed like a man shouting in an empty room, trying to convince himself he was winning. The audience didn't need to hear Obama's reply yet to know. The balance of power was shifting. And then, just as the tension reached its breaking point, Obama leaned slightly toward the microphone. The crowd held its breath. Because they knew. The calm before the storm was over. What was about to be said would not just answer Trump. It would dismantle him. The silence before the blow lands is always the most deafening. Cameras zoom in tight, every viewer at home leaning forward, sensing that something historic is about to unfold. The tension inside the hall is thick enough to choke on. Trump leans back in his chair, smirking, arms folded across his chest like he has already claimed victory. The crowd buzzes, restless, wondering if Obama will let the last insult slide, or if he's about to swing back with the kind of precision strike only he can deliver. Obama takes a deliberate pause, his gaze sweeping across the audience. His voice lowers, not in weakness, but in control. "You know," he begins, "it's funny how some people confuse bluster with strength." The hall stirs. The sentence hangs in the air like a fuse ready to ignite. Trump shifts in his seat, the smirk fading ever so slightly. Obama continues, pacing the rhythm like a prizefighter measuring distance. Real strength isn't about tearing down families. It isn't about mocking sacrifice. Real strength is about lifting people up, even when you disagree with them. It's about respecting the dignity of others, even when you have the power not to. The audience murmurs approval. Cameras flash. The tension sharpens, and everyone feels it. The shift of power, subtle but unstoppable. Trump, unable to resist, interrupts with a jab about Obama's weak record. But this time the words don't carry the same sting. They fall flat, almost desperate. Obama smiles, the calm confidence of a man who knows he has his opponent exactly where he wants him. "Since you mentioned records," Obama says, the smile fading into steel, "let's talk about what it means to serve the American people. Let's talk about what it means to put the country before yourself." The room falls silent. The crowd senses the incoming strike. For 8 years, Michelle and I lived under a microscope. Every decision, every word, every gesture. We carried not just our family but the weight of millions who saw their own hopes and struggles reflected in us. We knew that every time we stumbled, it wouldn't just be our stumble. It would be a headline. It would be fuel for those who doubted what people like us could achieve. The audience breaks into applause, the kind that rises like a wave and crashes with force. Obama raises his hand, signaling for quiet, his composure unbroken. Now contrast that with a man who has spent his life not in service but in self-service. A man who inherited everything and still claims to be self-made. A man who talks about strength but hides behind lawsuits, who talks about loyalty but discards people the moment they stop feeding his ego. A man who insults the sacrifices of others because he's never had to sacrifice anything for anyone but himself. The hall erupts. The words are a dagger wrapped in velvet, and everyone knows it. Trump's jaw tightens, his fingers tapping against the desk, a nervous tell that betrays his unraveling. Obama presses on, his cadence now rising, each line a hammer blow. "When you mock a marriage, you're mocking every immigrant couple who built a life together against the odds. When you dismiss sacrifice, you're dismissing every soldier's family who waited by the door not knowing if their loved one would return. When you sneer at dignity, you sneer at America itself. The crowd leaps to its feet. The sound is thunderous, rolling across the hall in waves. The cameras capture it all. Trump staring straight ahead, his lips pursed tight, the flush creeping up his face. Obama leans forward slightly, lowering his tone again. See, the truth is, you can buy a building. You can slap your name on a tower. But you can't buy respect. You can't buy love. You can't buy the bond of a family that's weathered storms together. Those things aren't for sale. They're earned. For the first time, Trump looks rattled. His hands shift, his body language no longer commanding but defensive, shrinking under the spotlight. The crowd senses blood in the water. And then, the mic drop line. Delivered not with anger, but with the clarity of absolute conviction. You insulted my marriage tonight to score a cheap laugh. But here's the difference between us. I don't need to insult your family to prove mine is strong, because the strength of my marriage doesn't depend on tearing someone else's down. It stands on its own. It always has. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the difference between a man who builds and a man who only knows how to destroy. The hall detonates. Applause crashes like thunder. Cheers shake the rafters. People leap from their seats, clapping, shouting, chanting. The sound is primal, a release of pent-up energy, the catharsis of seeing arrogance dismantled in real time. Trump opens his mouth as if to respond, but no words come. He looks left, then right, his eyes darting, searching for a lifeline that isn't there. The cameras stay fixed on him, capturing the sweat, the forced grin that doesn't reach his eyes. The once commanding presence is now a man exposed, stripped of his armor. Obama doesn't move. He stands tall, letting the noise wash over him, his expression calm, resolute. It's not the smug satisfaction of victory. It's the quiet dignity of someone who has simply told the truth and let the truth do the work. Minutes pass before the room settles again. The moderator, struggling to regain control, stammers a transition to the next question, but everyone knows the debate has already been decided. The moment has crystallized, immortalized in headlines and viral clips that will play on repeat for years. And as the applause finally ebbs, Obama leans in one last time, voice low, almost intimate. This is bigger than two men trading insults. This is about what kind of country we want to be. Do we want to be a nation that rewards cruelty, or one that honors compassion? Do we stand for division, or do we stand for unity? Tonight isn't about me, it's about us, and I'll always choose us. The audience rises again, this time not with frenzy but with reverence. A standing ovation that feels less like applause and more like a pledge. Trump sits frozen, cornered by the weight of his own contradictions. The camera cuts back and forth, Obama standing tall, the crowd behind him, Trump shrinking in his chair. The contrast is undeniable, and somewhere in that charged silence between applause and aftermath, America feels it, the turning of the tide. The mic has dropped. The echo will last for generations. By the time the cameras cut to commercial, the damage had already been done. The moment Obama leaned into the microphone and delivered the line that would echo for years, the debate hall had erupted in gasps, murmurs, and applause. But what came after, the ripple across the digital and political landscape, was something no one could have scripted. Within minutes, the internet lit up like wildfire. On Twitter, the first hashtag appeared almost instantly, @OBT. Ama owns Trump. It was raw, simple, and mercilessly viral. Within the hour, it was trending #1 nationwide. By dawn, it had gone global. Users in London, Lagos, Mumbai, and Toronto were chiming in, sharing clips of the exchange with captions like, "This is how you handle a bully." Alongside it, other tags emerged. #TruthBomb, presidential, #marriage matters. each one a digital echo of the live shock that had unfolded. Memes began flooding every feed. One showed Trump's reddened face, split-screened next to a deflating balloon. Another featured Obama with sunglasses dropping onto his face, the words "Deal with it" blazing across the screen. TikTok users layered the takedown over beats and remixes, turning it into an anthem of defiance. Even teenagers who had never watched a political debate before were suddenly quoting Obama's line as if it were a lyric from their favorite track. Cable news scrambled to keep up. CNN replayed the clip in endless loops, their chyron reading, "Obama torches Trump in historic debate moment." Fox, scrambling to contain the fallout, attempted to reframe the exchange as unpresidential, but even their panelists couldn't help smirking at how badly Trump had stumbled. MSNBC turned it into a rallying cry, with commentators praising Obama for restoring dignity in the face of cruelty. The late-night hosts took the moment and ran. Stephen Colbert quipped that Trump had just been fact-checked into another dimension. Jimmy Fallon reenacted the exchange with a dramatic mic drop, sending his audience into hysterics. Even Saturday Night Live rushed to produce a cold open that Saturday, with the sketch ending in the now immortalized silence of Trump staring blankly after Obama's line. Celebrities joined the chorus. Ava DuVernay tweeted, "This is why words matter. This is why leadership matters. Thank you for reminding us." LeBron James posted "Tuss." He clipped with nothing but a crown emoji. Lin-Manuel Miranda rewrote a snippet of Hamilton lyrics to fit Obama's comeback. Every share, every retweet, every creative spin multiplied the reach of the moment, pushing it from political discourse into cultural legend. But it wasn't just entertainment, it was impact. For countless Americans watching at home, something had shifted. Immigrant families gathered around their screens felt a renewed sense of pride. Parents pointed at Obama's composure, telling their children, "That's how you respond to hate, with dignity and truth." Communities who had felt exhausted by years of insults and division suddenly saw a spark of possibility. The debate wasn't just about policy anymore, it was about who got to define what America is. Politicians, too, couldn't stay silent. Senators tweeted their approval, hinting that decency just made a comeback. Governors used the moment in fundraising emails, calling it proof that standing tall against arrogance wasn't just good theater, it was good politics. Even some Republicans, privately frustrated with Trump's chaos, admitted off-record to reporters that Obama had landed a blow that cut deeper than anyone expected. The ripple extended into living rooms, classrooms, and workplaces. Water cooler conversations the next day weren't about the economy or health care. They were about that one line, that one takedown, that single flash of authenticity that cut through years of noise. Teachers played the clip for civics classes. Preachers wove its lesson into Sunday sermons. Activists turned it into rally speeches, urging crowds to remember that dignity can silence cruelty. And then came the polls. Overnight trackers showed a seismic shift. While Trump's base remained loyal, undecided voters tilted sharply. Focus groups described Obama as commanding, human, relatable, while Trump came off as flustered, weak, exposed. Analysts declared it a turning point, the moment when the narrative itself slipped out of Trump's hands. The world had witnessed more than just a debate exchange. They had seen a clash of character, ego against empathy, insult against integrity, and watched integrity win. The shockwaves proved that truth still had power, that words still mattered, and that even in the most divided of times, a single moment could unite millions in laughter, relief, and hope. And yet, beneath the memes and headlines, one question hung heavy in the air, waiting to be answered. If this moment could shake the culture, what would it do to the future? So here we are, standing in the afterglow of a moment that wasn't just televised. It was etched into the moral memory of a generation. We watched a bully stumble, We watched arrogance crack, and we watched courage rise. But the story doesn't end when the cameras shut off. The story lives on in what we do next. If you felt the fire of justice when the hero spoke, carry it forward. If you felt pride seeing the dignity of immigrant roots honored, pass it on. If you felt chills when the crowd roared, not for insults, but for truth, remember that energy belongs to you too. Because this was never about one debate. This is about every workplace where someone is silenced, every classroom where a child wonders if they belong, every street corner where power tries to tell people they are small. You have the chance to prove them wrong. Share this story. Keep the conversation alive. Refuse to let hate write the headlines of tomorrow. Let this moment be your reminder that silence only serves the oppressor, but action, your action, can bend history itself. The villain wanted America to forget who it is. The hero reminded us who we've always been. Now it's our turn. Will you carry the torch?